Let's start with a simple observation. Not everyone who works hard becomes wealthy. Isn't that true? That's just the way it is. While almost everyone aspires to succeed, to build a good life, perhaps excluding a few lacking ambition, the reality is that achieving significant prosperity remains elusive for many. We strive to earn a living, support our families, their partners, their children, give them a respectable life. In many cultures, this ability to provide is deeply tied to a man's value as a husband and a father. The teacher here, shares his experience. I've met men shouldering the immense burden of providing for their families, sometimes single-handedly. The stress is palpable. Society often equates a man's value with his income. Think of a child's joyful greeting for a returning father. "Daddy's home," running for a hug, overjoyed. It's heartwarming. But sometimes, if we look closely, that excitement might be linked to the fact that dad can provide for them right now. If he couldn't make ends meet, would that outpouring of love and respect fade? It's a harsh truth of life, sometimes, can be similar between partners. When a husband can provide well, love and respect often flourish. But if financial struggles hit and he can no longer support the family as before, those feelings can unfortunately diminish. Life can feel quite blunt, quite unforgiving that way. It's not necessarily about blame. A partner might not even consciously think, "I love you less because you earn less," but the dynamic shifts. That's just the reality we often see. So, here's the question. Why? Why is it that almost everyone wants to succeed, yet so few actually achieve great wealth or recognition? Look at the business world. We hear about the billionaires, but think of the millions, maybe hundreds of millions, who also study hard, start companies, pour their hearts into ventures. Yet only a tiny fraction reach that level of fame and fortune. The success rate isn't nearly as high as it might appear. Why not? Why doesn't hard work always lead to riches? There are many reasons, of course. It's like with any skill. Not everyone who studies music becomes a famous singer, do they? You can count the chart toppers on your fingers, but thousands graduate from music programs. Many end up teaching, or doing something else entirely, maybe even leaving the field. Success isn't automatic. School is the same. So many people go through the education system. Some finish high school. Some only make it partway through before needing to learn a trade or find work. Some go on to university, earn advanced degrees, become professors. But not everyone who studies becomes brilliant. Even with the same school, same teachers, same books, success varies wildly. Why? And it's the same with spiritual practice. Not everyone who practices attains realization or enlightenment. There seems to be a common thread here. Not everyone succeeds in business. Not everyone excels academically. Not everyone reaches the goal of their spiritual path. But what if there's an underlying formula connecting all three? If we could uncover that formula, perhaps more people could learn effectively, build successful businesses, and make real progress on their spiritual journey. From the teacher's understanding and practice, this formula seems to boil down to two essential elements. There are many contributing factors, naturally, but these two are key. Merit. This refers to the positive energy or potential accumulated through virtuous thoughts, words, and actions. It's believed to create favorable conditions and opportunities in life. The right method. This means having the correct approach, the proper way, or the effective path to follow in whatever you're doing, be it learning, business, or spiritual development. These two, merit and the right method, are the cornerstones. So, these two elements are key. For example, in spiritual practice, your progress depends on the level of your merit and whether your chosen method is correct and precise. If you have both a correct method and sufficient merit, you will undoubtedly achieve results, definite progress on the path. It's the same in business. Success hinges on two things. First, do you have the necessary merit? And second, is your way of doing business, your approach, correct? Now, some might argue, oh, if you have merit, you'll naturally become rich. Why worry about the method? Isn't merit enough? They might think just having merit guarantees wealth, regardless of how you conduct your business. The reasoning goes, Someone with merit is destined to handle large sums of money, and having a lot of money means you're wealthy. But be careful, it's not always that simple. What does this really mean? Sometimes, a person might go through a phase where, seemingly due to their merit, they can mobilize significant funds from others. Perhaps they find it easy to get bank loans, maybe through connections, or they propose a project that attracts many investors. They have a knack for persuading people, so money flows towards them. During this period, they appear very wealthy, managing large amounts of capital. However, true wealth means the money is actually yours. This is different from merely having a lot of money pass through your hands that belongs to others. Externally, both situations might look the same, lots of money involved. The teacher shares, "I have met people like this. They control and manage vast sums, but if you look deeper, it's not truly their money. It's not their real assets." Still, having the ability to attract, coordinate, and manage such large amounts indicates they do possess some kind of merit at that time. They might even feel very wealthy themselves. But looking closely, examining the core situation reveals the funds aren't theirs, and this kind of apparent wealth isn't secure, stable, or lasting. So, yes, they have merit undoubtedly, but perhaps their business methods, their investment strategies are not truly sound or correct. Eventually, the money that flowed to them flows away again. Sometimes, its departure is even accompanied by legal trouble, even imprisonment, because they misused other people's funds inefficiently or improperly. The threat of legal consequences looms, a frightening prospect. So even during a period where they seemed to possess great wealth, it wasn't genuinely theirs. They had merit, yes, but their methods were wrong. Now, let's look at learning. To excel in studies, the same principle applies. You need both merit and, secondly, the right methods of teaching and learning. Someone without sufficient merit may struggle to learn effectively. That's a fundamental principle discussed here. Merit helps you learn well initially. Whether you can then successfully apply that learning in your career or business is another matter, potentially requiring a different kind of merit. But for learning itself, understanding quickly, remembering well, recalling information efficiently, having merit is considered the first essential foundation. Merit helps you learn quickly, understand deeply, and remember information well, allowing for rapid recall. In fact, the teacher suggests that memory itself can seem like a kind of extraordinary ability. Think about how you recall information. When you want to remember what happened in a specific year, the memory simply appears. According to this perspective, there isn't necessarily a deliberate method you employ in that instant of recall. It feels almost intuitive, like a special faculty. Therefore, when someone possesses an outstanding memory, while they might practice memory techniques to some extent, it's also seen as a sign that they possess significant merit, which strengthens this faculty. In Buddhism, this exceptional ability is sometimes called the power of strong recall. Many great practitioners possessed this, like the enlightened disciples known as arhats. The most famous example is Ananda, the Buddha's attendant, known for remembering all the teachings. Even today, the speaker notes, there are masters with almost unbelievable memory, able to recall the exact scripture, page number, and even line number for a specific quote. This remarkable capacity is an example of that power of strong recall. However, simply remembering information is only one aspect of true learning or academic excellence. There are deeper levels. The teacher outlines 3 key components. Memory, the ability to retain data accurately. Learning quickly by heart falls into this category, but it's just the foundation. Analysis and conclusion, the ability to use that data to reason and draw conclusions. For example, using geometric principles to determine if 2 triangles are congruent. This requires a level of intelligence beyond mere memorization. Creativity and innovation. The highest level involves using existing knowledge to create something new, perhaps a novel way to solve a problem, or even formulating entirely new problems or concepts. This is a different order of intelligence altogether. So, intelligence is complex, involving memory, analysis, and creativity. Achieving this requires both the student's own capacity, which includes their accumulated merit, and the artistry and skill of the teacher. Consider teaching. One teacher might explain a lesson to a class of 50 students, and only 5 understand. Another teacher might cover the exact same material, and 10 students grasp it. But a truly skilled teacher might explain it in such a way, using the right words, sequencing ideas perfectly, guiding the students' minds step by step, that perhaps 49 out of 50 understand immediately. This depends entirely on the teacher's skill, presentation style, dedication, and ability to convey knowledge effectively. We owe a great debt to skilled teachers for this ability, this dedication, this talent for transmission. Not everyone who teaches possesses this gift. If we are fortunate enough to study with excellent teachers, and we combine that with our own effort and merit, we are likely to learn well. So, encountering a good teacher can also be seen as an element of good fortune, itself connected to our merit. Our merit helps us find the right teachers, which in turn helps us learn and grow. Of course, there are exceptional cases, individuals with extraordinary merit and innate wisdom. We might call them prodigies. They seem capable of learning deeply on their own. Give them a book, and they absorb it completely without needing explanations. Give them exercises, and they solve them without guidance. Such individuals are rare and seem less dependent on teachers. Most students, however, need guidance, and often classroom teaching isn't enough. Extra help might be needed. So, that's a brief look at education. Success there also depends on both merit and the right method. Now, let's turn to doing business. This field is vast, with countless industries one could enter. How does one succeed and become prosperous? While we aren't diving deep into a how-to-get-rich seminar today, there are some fundamental principles. Before aspiring to wealth, before even starting a business, please remember this prerequisite. Engage in meritorious deeds. This is the absolute starting point. We often fall into the habit of eagerly jumping into business ventures while completely forgetting this initial foundation of merit. The teacher shares an example from his own community. Sometimes I would guide the youth groups from our temple community to participate in building roads. This kind of work seems simple, requiring little complex calculation. Yet it can bring significant good fortune into one's life and help overcome hardships. These simple acts build merit, which can lead to unexpected positive outcomes. Just yesterday, on the teacher's birthday, many people sent well wishes. One message particularly caught his attention. Teacher, since knowing you, our lives have gained direction, morality, and good fortune. The mention of good fortune was especially pleasing, he notes, because it showed this person understood and applied the principle of doing good deeds, changing their own karma and seeing their life become more fortunate than before. This follower had clearly participated in community activities and performed many meritorious acts, thus altering their destiny. That, the teacher emphasizes, is the first condition for success. Therefore, be cautious if you hear someone discussing business strategies but they never mention the importance of establishing this initial foundation of merit and virtue. From this perspective, all platforms for wealth creation and business must be built upon merit and ethical conduct. Without merit, hoping for lasting success is futile. You might achieve some success based on merit from previous lives, but how much of that past merit remains? We don't know. The surest approach is to diligently focus on accumulating merit starting from now. When you have cultivated sufficient merit, opportunities for business often arise naturally. Perhaps you're currently unemployed, unsure what to do. The advice given here is, focus on performing meritorious deeds. Go to the temple and offer service, help build roads, clean up litter, plant trees, assist others in need. If necessary, the speaker suggests, one might even humbly ask their parents for support during this period. Mom, Dad, you've raised me all my life, supported me through school. Could you please support me for perhaps 2 more years? I promise to diligently cultivate merit, and then you'll see. When my merit is sufficient, I will be able to support you in return. But for now, please help me for these 2 years. Most parents, faced with such a sincere plea, would likely find it hard to refuse. Then, during those 2 years, focus intensely on doing good. After that time, if opportunities haven't arisen, Perhaps the speaker jests, ask for another 6 months, reasoning that maybe the merit wasn't quite sufficient yet. The underlying belief is this: when your merit reaches a certain level, business opportunities, job prospects, the right career path, they will come to you. If you chase frantically after them while lacking sufficient merit, they might seem to constantly elude you, like trying to catch something that keeps dodging away. The counsel here is to stop chasing desperately. Instead, focus on cultivating merit and engaging in service to others. Then, opportunities will find you. You might even find several different offers coming your way, putting you in the pleasant position of being able to choose the best fit. Merit is presented here as the foundation for everything, especially for doing business and achieving sustainable prosperity. As we've seen, merit is the foundation for everything, especially for business and achieving prosperity. The same applies to education. The teacher recalls his school days, using fountain pens with ink cartridges that needed refilling. You'd fill enough ink for the morning, then refill at home for the next day. But sometimes a friend would forget to refill their pen and run out mid-lesson. They might ask, "Friend, can you spare a drop? Lend me just 1 drop." So you'd carefully unscrew your pen, squeeze out a single drop for them to draw into their pen nib, allowing them to write a few more lines. "Lend me a drop," they'd say, "and I'll pay you back tomorrow," perhaps even promising 2 drops in return. It sounds innocent, like typical childhood interactions. But the teacher views this as a somewhat sad story. Why sad? Because even something as small as ink became a loan, a transaction. What should have happened? Ideally, you should just give it freely, shouldn't you? Helping your friends learn, explaining things they don't understand, sharing resources like ink. These acts of generosity build the specific merit needed to excel academically yourself. But in the story, the exchange was transactional. "Lend me 1 drop, I'll repay you 2 tomorrow." If even ink is treated as a loan, how can one cultivate the merit needed to truly learn well? Therefore, the advice for parents who want their children to succeed in their studies is this: instead of trying to curry favor with teachers, guide your children to cultivate merit by genuinely helping their friends learn. By helping others study, they themselves will develop the capacity to learn well. Of course, whether they later succeed in business after finishing their studies involves other factors, perhaps different kinds of merit. But fostering this generosity is key for academic development. Parents need to understand this when guiding their children. Often, parents place immense expectations on their children, wanting them to be successful, brilliant, achieve great things. A child's success is often a source of immense pride and honor for the parents. So, it's understandable why they want their children to shine. The teacher observes families where children struggle academically, get low ranks, perhaps fail exams, maybe don't make it to university and end up in manual labor instead. You can see the disappointment and sadness in the parents' faces. But sometimes, there's nothing more they feel they can do. Perhaps they believe their child's capacity is simply limited. They might feel they can't demand more. However, often they don't know how to help their child succeed because they aren't using the key of cause and effect and merit virtue. They just keep pushing the child to study, study, study. But if the underlying foundation of merit isn't there, forced studying is ineffective. It simply doesn't work. Worse still, this constant pressure, without addressing the root cause according to these principles, can lead to dangerous psychological consequences for the child, such as despair and depression. Understanding this is crucial. So, if parents see their child struggling, perhaps the wiser approach is to remain calm and find ways for the child to engage in meritorious deeds, to cultivate that essential foundation. As their merit grows, so too might their ability to learn. Now, let's return to the earlier scenario. Imagine asking a potential son-in-law, "You want to marry my daughter. How will you support her?" If the young man answers, "First, I will focus on cultivating merit," the teacher suggests that's the one. That's a sign he understands. Don't hesitate. This one is promising. But if he gives an answer like the old proverb, "Heaven that brings forth the elephant will also bring forth grass for it to feed on," implying passive reliance on fate, don't agree to the marriage. That attitude, the teacher says forcefully, is like condemning your child to eat grass. So, the young man who understands the importance of cultivating merit first is the promising choice. Now, let's return to spiritual practice. From the time of the Buddha until today, spanning thousands of years, quite a few people have encountered the path, the teachings. Yet, very few who undertake spiritual practice achieve deep success or realization. This scarcity of successful practitioners, the teacher argues, contributes to a decline in the vitality of the Buddhist teachings, the Dharma itself. Why? Because when people strive earnestly but see no results, their faith inevitably wavers. No matter how much they profess to love the path, deep down that conviction fades. At that point, if someone comes along offering a different belief system, they might easily be swayed, simply because their own practice yielded no tangible fruit. And why do so few attain the goal? Again, comes down to lacking two essential elements: sufficient merit and the right method. The right method is the path we walk in spiritual life. Within Buddhism, this involves understanding core principles like the Four Noble Truths. We need to understand the ideal, which is the truth of the cessation of suffering. The way to walk, which is the truth of the path leading to that cessation, often detailed as the Noble Eightfold Path. And the nature of our reality, which involves recognizing the truth of suffering and the truth of the origin of suffering. A thorough grasp of these truths is essential. However, even understanding the path, the teacher emphasizes the most crucial foundation is still merit. This merit needs to be cultivated abundantly, made thick and strong through ethical conduct, specifically through right thinking or resolve, right speech, and right action. These are fundamental components of the path itself, and they build the necessary merit. When we cultivate sufficient merit and follow the right method, our spiritual practice will begin to show signs of progress. What are the very first, perhaps smallest, indications that our practice is bearing fruit? One initial sign might be experiencing less misfortune. Other early signs often include finding that your sleep becomes deeper and more peaceful, and noticing a reduction in illness. These are the first, very practical signs. Better sleep and reduced illness. What else happens if you are practicing correctly? Gradually, good fortune starts to arrive. Suddenly, business matters might flow more smoothly. Your physical health and stamina may improve. You might feel yourself naturally understanding life and worldly affairs with greater clarity and sensitivity than before. Wisdom and intelligence seem to subtly emerge in handling daily tasks. Another sign is in your interactions with others. You might notice that people seem to regard you with more warmth and kindness. These are all initial, observable indicators of correct spiritual practice. When your practice is aligned, these positive changes begin to manifest. For instance, perhaps previously certain people barely acknowledged you. Now, maybe after a year, you meet them again, and they look at you more attentively, perhaps even asking you a question or two. This signifies progress in your relationships. Of course, reaching a stage where people feel compelled to bow down in reverence upon meeting you is a much further step, a very advanced sign of progress. But a common early indicator is simply finding that people generally treat you with more goodwill than before. This signifies you are practicing correctly. This improvement in relationships isn't forced. It's described as a natural sign of one's merit gradually developing and blossoming. It happens naturally, step by step. What else? There's another sign that the teacher suggests everyone tends to appreciate. Your face may gradually become more radiant, more beautiful. This outward change is presented as a reflection of the inner virtue and merit acquired through practice. Therefore, if you want to gauge your progress in this regard, the teacher offers practical, even humorous, advice. Get a mirror and keep it hidden in your room. Use only that one mirror over time. Don't switch mirrors, because nowadays some mirrors are designed to create an artificial enhancement, making you look deceptively better than you are. Using the same mirror avoids this illusion. Look at your face in that mirror this year. Then look again next year and the year after. If, using the same mirror, your face appears more radiant over time, it confirms your practice is bearing fruit. You are developing merit. Conversely, he starkly warns, if you practice in some way, then look in the mirror and find your own reflection becoming somehow frightening. So much so that you yourself are alarmed. It's an indicator that your practice has gone astray, that you are practicing incorrectly. These are some observable signs related to the development of merit from practice. Beyond these outward signs, where does the deeper result of spiritual practice lie? It lies in the inner purity and tranquility experienced during meditation or deep concentration. Achieving a calm and quiet mind while meditating is described as the clearest and most authentic indicator of progress. However, the teacher immediately adds a crucial clarification. This initial state of inner calm, while significant, should not be mistaken for higher spiritual attainment or full realization, sometimes called sainthood. True realization, he explains, requires the eradication of deep-rooted mental defilements or fetters. Simply feeling calm is not yet that state. Nevertheless, experiencing greater inner peace than before is a definite sign of progress. Confirms that one is on the right path and serves to strengthen one's faith in the practice. This inner peace also generates many positive effects and benefits in daily life. For example, with a calmer mind, you might develop a deeper understanding of other people, possess a sharper and more insightful mind when dealing with life's issues, handle matters with greater skill and profundity, and feel a sense of personal evolution, as if stepping up to a new level as a human being. But again, this is still not the final goal. The critical danger point, the common error, often occurs right here. Imagine the difference between an ordinary person, a worldly individual whose mind is typically agitated, restless, and prone to unwholesome states, and a noble one or saintly being characterized by a mind that is profoundly pure, gentle, and compassionate. The journey from the former state to the latter is quite a long one. The danger arises when a practitioner experiences just a slight improvement, moving from a very agitated mind to one that is only a little calmer compared to their previous state. This small step away from the ordinary state is a sign of progress, a degree of inner quietness. But, if not guided by good teachers and virtuous friends who provide careful instruction, there's a risk of misinterpreting this modest progress. One might engage in excessive self-praise or worse, be praised inappropriately by false or misleading teachers, or by teachers who are not themselves genuinely realized. This premature adulation for what is still a minor achievement can cause a practitioner's spiritual journey to stall or collapse right at that point. The teacher provides a stark example. A student describes a meditative experience filled with sensations of vastness, perhaps feeling the body disappear, or seeing the universe filled with light. An unqualified teacher might wrongly affirm this as realization or enlightenment. The speaker warns that such misguidance is spiritually perilous for both teacher and student, using strong imagery to imply leading each other toward disastrous spiritual ends. He claims that this very issue, mistaking minor experiences for profound attainment due to misleading praise, is a significant reason for the decline of genuine Buddhist practice. He calls it a grave error that corrupts not just one teacher and student, but potentially the entire authentic teaching, the Dharma. In stark contrast, he presents an observation about practice under a true guide. Practicing under the teacher might mean a lifetime of continuous self-reflection and recognizing one's own shortcomings. While this might sound dreadful or miserable to some, he asserts that this very approach, one of rigorous honesty with oneself and humility, is in fact the true Dharma, the authentic path. This approach, described as the true Dharma, involves continuous, honest self-assessment. What does this mean in practice? When wandering thoughts arise during meditation or daily life, one recognizes them not just as distractions but perhaps as manifestations of past faults or unresolved karmic patterns. Even when the mind experiences moments of calm, one maintains awareness that deep within still lie layers of fundamental ignorance, ego-clinging or self-grasping, arrogance, greed, aversion or hatred, selfishness, and other faults. The practice is one of consistently acknowledging these underlying tendencies within oneself. Now, here's the strange, paradoxical effect. This rigorous inner work, this constant honest look at one's own shortcomings, has a surprisingly positive impact on others. People tend to feel very comfortable and at ease around someone who genuinely practices this form of humility and self-reflection. The teacher suggests this pleasant feeling can be a reliable sign. When you meet fellow practitioners and feel instantly comfortable around someone, even though you don't know their inner secrets, chances are that person regularly practices this kind of self-awareness. He indicates this is characteristic of dedicated practitioners, perhaps like those in his own community. Conversely, consider when you encounter someone and feel immediately uncomfortable. Sitting near them makes you fidgety. Their gaze, their smile, even their conversation makes you feel uneasy or irritated. This discomfort, the teacher explains, often stems from that person habitually engaging in self-praise. Their arrogance and inflated ego create friction. It's as if they project a kind of thorny, invisible aura. This unpleasant energy subtly collides with or impacts the faculty of feeling or sensitivity of those nearby. Their eyes may lack gentleness, reflecting ego and a tendency to judge others harshly. Their smile might feel condescending rather than friendly. Their words often betray their pride, leading to friction and unease in others. When you feel this kind of inexplicable discomfort around someone, it's often a sign they are caught in arrogance, likely stemming from excessive self-praise based on some minor achievement. This principle extends beyond individuals to entire spiritual communities. If you enter a temple or a large gathering and feel an atmosphere of discomfort, tension, awkwardness, or a heavy feeling that makes you want to leave quickly, it might indicate that the collective practice there is off track. It suggests perhaps there's too much pride, too much ego, too many thorns, invisibly clashing among the members. On the other hand, if you enter a spiritual center or join a group and feel immediately at ease, peaceful, happy, and find yourself wanting to stay longer, that's a positive sign. It suggests the practice within that community is likely correct and authentic, precisely because the people there tend to cultivate humility and consistent self-reflection rather than self-praise. This practice of acknowledging one's own imperfections, the teacher concludes, is aligned with the true Dharma. Now, regarding this approach of accurately acknowledging one's faults, someone might raise a question based on certain Western psychological ideas. If you constantly focus on your shortcomings, won't you develop an inferiority complex, lose your fighting spirit, and become incapable of action? The teacher acknowledges this viewpoint, associating it with some Western psychological trends. He critiques what he sees as an overemphasis on praise in some Western parenting styles, offering an example. A father praising his child for getting only 2 points on a test, saying, "It's okay, son, you did fine," and continuing to praise even subsequent poor performance. The teacher argues this principle, intending to build self-esteem by avoiding criticism, can actually hinder the child's true development, calling it a mistake. He contrasts this sharply with the Buddhist path of practice, which, in his view, involves this continuous honest self-assessment. This is similar, he suggests, to the contemplation practices found in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. He notes that while the Buddha originally taught bare observation, contemplating body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, phenomena as phenomena, later masters, he claims, added specific characteristics to contemplate. The body as impure, feelings as suffering, the mind as impermanent, and phenomena as non-self or empty. These additions, framed here as forms of realistic assessment, are seen as tools to help practitioners advance on the path. Furthermore, the teacher refers to a teaching where the Buddha advised monks and practitioners that if they found themselves dwelling on the attractive aspects of phenomena, they should redirect their attention to contemplating the unattractive aspects. He explains its meaning. Our human form possesses both attractive aspects, the externally pleasing features, and unattractive or impure aspects, the internal biological realities. The Buddha taught that the attractive aspects are readily apparent. We naturally notice them. However, the unattractive aspects are harder to see and require deliberate effort to contemplate. What are these aspects? The attractive aspects are the elements of natural beauty that we typically display. Well-styled hair, perhaps enhanced with products. A generally pleasing appearance. Maybe long hair flowing in the wind, cosmetically enhanced teeth, or a beautiful smile. Fashionable clothes, smooth, radiant skin, perhaps maintained with specific creams advertised to give that rosy white glow. All these visible elements constitute the attractive aspects by which people often draw others to them. When we look at someone and perceive their beauty, we are contemplating these attractive aspects. But the Buddha warned against dwelling only here. He urged practitioners to look deeper, to contemplate the unattractive aspects. What does looking deep inside mean? The teacher uses a modern analogy, the American TV show CSI, involving crime scene investigation. When a victim is found, they are taken for forensic examination. The medical examiner performs an autopsy, looking beneath the surface to determine the cause of death. Was it poisoning? A gunshot? A stabbing? If stabbed, what kind of weapon? How deep? How wide? Through this examination of the body's internal state, investigators can reconstruct perhaps 70% of the crime. The teacher recounts a hypothetical forensic pathologist who, after years of work, might tell detectives examining a body. On the outside, people look different, but on the inside, everyone is the same. When opened up, it's all fat, bones, blood, various organs, fundamentally similar across individuals. And the deeper you go into the body's functions, the more unattractive aspects you find related to biological necessities. We all must eat, digest, and eliminate waste. The body constantly works to purify itself, separating waste from nutrient, a highly complex process. So, if we calmly reflect on our own bodies, contemplating all these metabolic activities and biological realities, we might realize that what we typically call beautiful, the external surface, constitutes perhaps only 5% of the picture. The other 95%, the internal workings and processes, consists of things we generally don't, or shouldn't, display, aspects not typically considered pleasant or beautiful. When we understand this deeper reality, the true nature of the body and of life itself, our minds naturally begin to calm down. We become less infatuated, less captivated by fleeting worldly appearances. The Buddha wanted us to cultivate this balanced perspective. This is what is needed. The key is to see things comprehensively, to look at every aspect. For example, consider wealth. When we see someone rich and successful, their wealth and status are the attractive aspects. They might have a nice car, maybe a 7-seater Lexus, a multi-story house. These are the visible signs. But there are also unattractive aspects, the suffering hidden behind that wealth, which can be significant. Think of the potential conflicts, the competitiveness, the constant calculation and planning, the complex dealings, relationship management, diplomacy, trying to please people, countless demanding tasks. These constitute the unattractive aspects of worldly success, often involving immense stress. The inherent nature of this worldly life often involves suffering precisely because of these pressures. As the saying goes, the more money and activities one has, the more worries one tends to carry. Isn't that often true? This explains why some practitioners throughout history, sometimes called hermits or recluses, choose to renounce wealth altogether. They might retreat to the countryside or forest, build a simple hut, plant some trees, and live with minimal possessions. Why? Because by reducing the attachment to wealth and status, the associated suffering and anxieties also diminish. Some people choose this simple, secluded life because they cannot bear the pressure of affluence. So we need to look at life this way. People desire beauty and wealth. But behind that beauty and wealth, there's often a steep, sometimes harsh price to pay. It's not always glamorous. The Buddha wanted us to see both sides of the coin. When you see wealth, also see the potential suffering that comes with it. When you see beauty, also recognize the impermanent and perhaps less appealing aspects underlying it. By seeing both, we gain balance and calmness. Now, one might ask, Teacher, does this mean we should choose a poor, simple life to avoid worries? It's true that reduced worry is an attractive aspect of simplicity. But behind that lack of material stress lies a potentially significant, unattractive aspect. The diminished opportunity to help others. That's a major drawback. This world, this life, is inherently like this, imperfect. If wealth brings too much pressure, we might choose a simple, modest life. But that simplicity has its own disadvantages. If you want to help someone, you might find yourself unable to. Imagine living simply, perhaps drawing water from a stream, eating basic food, enjoying quiet evenings watching the sunset. Then, suddenly, a child runs up. "Uncle, there's a message. Your mother is being rushed to the hospital." But in your simple life, you have no car, you sold it long ago. You try to catch a bus, but you only have a couple of coins. Not enough for the fare. Poverty has its own suffering. A simple life has its own constraints. The world is like this, imperfect, full of contradictions. The Buddha teaches us to look at all facets of any situation. When we see things comprehensively, we naturally learn how to respond, how to navigate this complex world full of paradoxes and conflicts. Amidst these challenges, we must find a way to rise above, to skillfully weave through the difficulties. How do we do this? How do we rise above? If you meet a beautiful person, recognize they may have merit from the past, but also understand that beauty is impermanent and has underlying unattractive aspects. The skillful response taught by the Buddha is to see both the attractive and unattractive sides, perhaps gently encourage them towards spiritual practice, but certainly not to become infatuated or lost in their beauty. That's how we navigate the complexities. If you are wealthy and feel the pressure, use the opportunity your wealth provides to help the world, to benefit others, to create more merit. Don't let wealth become merely a burden or a source of stress. See it as a chance to do good. If you are poor, make use of the situation. When worldly activities are limited, focus on spiritual practice. Meditate, recite mantras or scriptures, engage in simple acts of service like helping build roads or collecting trash if possible. Find contentment within poverty. Accept your situation, your karma, cheerfully, without arrogance or illusion. People might look down on you for being poor, but you can find joy in your simplicity. Accept your circumstances willingly and create merit within those constraints. In essence, amidst this world filled with complexities, conflicts, paradoxes, and contradictions, we must skillfully navigate our way forward and upward. And the means to do this? We return again to the two foundations, merit and the right method. In this complex world, hold on to these two as your guide and foundation to move forward. We must rely solely on the Buddha's teachings. We trust that his description reflects the reality of our mind, and based on this understanding, we begin to walk the path, step by step, following his guidance. So, what did the Buddha teach about the nature of the mind? He taught that it ranges from states of agitation all the way down to its deepest root. What is that deepest root? Can anyone see it? No. But listening to the Buddha's teachings, we understand that the deepest level of the mind is fundamental ignorance. What is this ignorance? No one can directly see it, but we must have faith in the teaching. Through our intelligence, we can begin to sense it. We may not comprehend it fully, as it's the mind's deepest aspect, understood only by those who have attained realization. But out of respect for the Buddha, we trust that indeed, at our core, the origin of the mind's process is this fundamental ignorance. From this ignorance, gradually arise the disturbances of ego-clinging, arrogance, selfishness, greed, aversion or hatred, delusion, doubt, countless issues. These then manifest as the surface layer of wandering thoughts, the constant stream of thinking about this and that. Our brain seems to instinctively keep churning out thoughts. Analyzing all these layers fully would take years, but understanding the basic structure allows us to proceed. We understand, for now, the general path, from the agitated surface thoughts, through deeper layers of feelings, emotions, perceptions, latent tendencies, and fetters, eventually reaching ego-clinging and the root ignorance. That's the map. Now, the first hurdle is the surface layer of agitation, the wandering thoughts. If we cannot calm this initial layer, we cannot enter deeper meditation. It must be stilled first. So, how do we stop it? How do we stop this initial stream of thoughts? Here's the secret. The teacher insists. Don't touch them. Don't directly engage with wandering thoughts. They are quite fierce. Don't be foolish and try to fight them directly. They will just jump around more wildly. This is not a joke. It's a key technique. Don't confront the thoughts. Even though they are the first layer we need to calm before progressing in meditation. If we don't directly engage them, what do? We implement certain methods that allow the wandering thoughts to settle down by themselves. Don't address them head-on. What are these methods? There are 3 key points. After having already cultivated substantial merit and virtue through good deeds, these are the 3 technical steps to manage wandering thoughts. Regarding thoughts, understand that wandering thoughts are the result of past faults or karma. Even if the mind experiences moments of stillness, recognize that deep inside, ignorance, ego-clinging, arrogance, selfishness, and underlying agitation still remain. This understanding itself is a form of contemplation, reasoning, and wise reflection. Regarding the breath, be aware of the breath flowing in and out. However, and this requires skill, do not allow the breath to become heavy or forced. There's a natural tendency for the breath to become more pronounced when we pay attention to it. The practitioner must be skillful here. Be aware of the breath, but gently guide it to be subtle. Light. How light? There's no specific answer. The practitioner must gauge it themselves. If you feel your breath is still too coarse, don't breathe like that. A little later, if it still feels too coarse, adjust again. Naturally, it will become fainter and fainter. Sometimes it might become so subtle it feels as if it has stopped. Don't be afraid. You won't die. The teacher jokes about having monks ready to perform funeral rites, but assures listeners not to fear. If the breath seems to stop, let it be as long as you maintain awareness of the breath, even awareness of its apparent stopping. Why don't you die? The teacher points to a phenomenon. If you measure your blood oxygen saturation level, your SpO2, using a fingerclip monitor after such a meditation session where the breath felt like it stopped, you'll likely find it's still very high, perhaps 98%, 99%, or even 100%. The strange. How can oxygen levels be high when you barely seem to be breathing? That's one of the secrets of deep meditation, related to simply maintaining gentle awareness of the breath. The secret to high blood oxygen isn't necessarily breathing forcefully, but rather maintaining calm, gentle awareness. Remember this secret, the teacher says playfully, but don't go broadcasting it everywhere. So, be aware of the breath entering and leaving. Don't allow it to be coarse, and let it become progressively calmer. This is the second step. Regarding the body, be aware of the entire body. Keep the body soft and motionless. Specifically, maintain awareness extending down to the very base of the abdomen, the perineum area. Never let your awareness drift away from this anchor point. Why? Because subtle wandering thoughts will try to pull your awareness away from this groundedness. Skillfully keep your attention anchored there. These are the 3 points, the 3 techniques to manage wandering thoughts without confronting them directly. If you practice these 3 things consistently, the initial layer of wandering thoughts will naturally calm down. Of course, entering deeper layers of the mind, all the way to the root of ignorance, is a very long journey. But this first doorway, calming the initial agitation and wandering thoughts, must be passed through to enter meditation properly. And achieving even this first step is actually a significant challenge. It requires not only these techniques during sitting practice but also a foundation built upon a lifetime of ethical conduct and performing many wholesome, meritorious deeds. So, try to practice these 3 technical steps diligently. Finally, the teacher offers some concluding words of encouragement. As the year draws to a close, we reflect that with each passing day and month, we grow older. Some things develop with age while others inevitably decline. But there is one thing that must develop continuously as we journey through life: our spiritual heart. May our reverence for the Buddha never diminish. May our loving kindness and compassion for all beings never decrease. And remember always to carefully monitor our own arrogance, so that anyone who comes near us may feel at ease, light, and comfortable. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.